The Isle of Wight, a peaceful place, favoured by the elderly as a haven for retirement, and for parents as a safe environment for young children. But it may not be as safe as many people think. The amount of car crashes on the island every year, particularly those involving young people, is shocking. 114 people are killed or seriously injured on island roads every year, a third of which are young people aged between 16 and 24. In this film we will be looking at the possible causes of these collisions, and what can be done to prevent them. We will investigate how the conditions of the roads and inexperience might impact on the rate of road traffic incidents. In order to do this, we will speak to relatives of collision victims and professionals who work for Shanklin Policing Unit, the AA Driving School and Newport Fire Station. One subject which always comes up when discussing road traffic accidents and the Isle of Wight is the condition of the roads. The whole of the Isle of Wight is currently undergoing a massive resurfacing programme, but before this was started, the island had the second worst road standards in the UK. Could this be our main cause? And what do the public think? So the public seem to think that the winding and narrow lanes themselves are an important factor. But is this the case?
My name's Jeff Walls. I'm the station commander at Newport Fire Station for the Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue Service. Obviously speed is the cause quite often, but sometimes it's just driving to the road conditions and people haven't done that, and as a result they've had an accident.
How about inexperienced young drivers? Does this contribute to the numbers of crashes involving young people?
The biggest issue for young people is inexperience. You know, young people don't know what they don't know, and young people tend to take more risks. I think that's the biggest issue, which we could talk about in great depth, but it's the inexperience that the driver has which makes them vulnerable on the roads. I don't think they're to blame or should ever be singled out. It should just be accepted by everybody on the road that when you've got a younger person, that we need to be aware that the reactions of that younger person may be based around inexperience or naivety, because people don't know what they don't know.
So clearly inexperience is a big factor, but how can this be addressed? In other countries such as Australia, there are much more stringent laws affecting what newly qualified drivers can and can't do. The UK government are also looking into this matter and are considering a number of possible changes to current legislation. Some of the changes being considered are a minimum learning age, temporary restrictions on newly qualified drivers, and a curfew of 11 PM to 5 AM, as well as many others. We wanted to know what our contributors thought of this.
I'm not for curfews, because who's going to police it? I think if we can fit black boxes in and have a reasonable curfew of say 12 o'clock at night, that's absolutely fine. We could do something like that. To raise the age by 1 year from 17 to 18 is not going to have a big impact, because the bulk of my drivers are over 18, but I pick them up in their 20s more often than not. Out of all my learners, I've got 3 people that are 17, simply because of finance.
I can't talk on behalf of Hampshire Constabulary in relation to that. I have heard this. It's not something I've discussed before. I haven't read vastly into it. I have a number of questions that I would throw back to that question in relation to, is it fair? Is it right to affect somebody's right to go about their business when they want to do it? I could balance that off the top of my head with the realisation that with young people you've got that inexperience. You've got issues around the difference between daylight driving and night driving, and the two skills are very different. And you've got, statistically, you've got more serious collisions during those hours than you do at others. So maybe there's an argument.
I think that the government's report will cut down on crashes a bit, but in some situations young adults will be rushing to get home and so cause more crashes around 10 PM. But yeah, it should cut down a little bit, but not probably how they want it to.
I think the government hopefully have looked at statistics, and if that's a peak time with regard to the curfew, that there are accidents with younger drivers, then maybe something like that would be a good thing. whatever we do, I think it needs to be backed up with statistics to actually look at when the problems happen or what is the cause of the problems and do something about that. Because certainly from my perspective, anything to reduce road traffic collisions will be a good thing.
The government, councils, schools, and it seems most authorities in society are always encouraging people to be safer drivers and to be careful on the roads. But if driver error is one of the main causes of collisions, is just being careful enough to keep us safe? What specific things do people think could help to prevent crashes?
Probably don't drink and drive, just give your keys to someone and keep them safe. Or actually look where you're going when you're driving, because I know a lot of people don't. So.
I think drive around on your own when you first pass your test to get to know the roads before you take any of your friends in your car with you.
It's probably more about being aware of how important it is to concentrate as you're driving.
Slow down.
People taking responsibility for their own actions and considering others. That's how they can be prevented. From people being aware, people reflecting on a regular basis about their own driving style.
It would probably be a longer test so that the concentration is there, so that it's all about making driving automatic, so that the actual controls of the car, the things that we do within the car and the way that we observe while we're driving is automatic, and then we can concentrate on different situations that come around.
Don't ever go in a car full of people. Don't have a car full of your friends, because your friends distract you.
After a while, it started to feel as if we were looking at this matter as if it was just numbers and figures, but it isn't. We seemed to forget that this was real people's lives and deaths we were looking into. It was time that we talked to people who had been affected by these horrible incidents.
My brother died in a car accident when I was 10 and he was 18. They were going along and something made them swerve, and they crashed into a telephone pole, and the telephone pole fell onto the roof of the car and crushed the roof of the car and killed both of them instantly, on site. It's down the road from my house. It's about 2 minutes by car. It was 11 o'clock at night and 2 days before my older sister's birthday. We didn't find out until the morning of the 5th. And I came downstairs ready for school, to get breakfast and stuff. And then my sister strutted in, or oh, it's my birthday tomorrow, you're all ready kind of thing. It was weird how normal it felt now, thinking about it. But then I saw a police car and a policeman walking down our drive. So I told my mum and my sister, and my mum kind of stopped what she was doing and went to go get the door and told me and my sister to stay in the kitchen. And I didn't hear any of it, and then my mum just kind of started crying and screaming, and she collapsed to the floor. And then her boyfriend obviously heard and came running and helped her up and took her in to sit down and told me to go and get my grandparents who live next door. So I went through and I was just really confused, and they came in and they spoke to the policeman, and obviously they started crying, and it was all very hectic, but still didn't know what was going on. And then one of my older sisters came over to me and my little sister and was just something's happened to Stevie, and then couldn't quite say the words and just started crying, and because everyone else, obviously all my family were all crying, and and then I just went up to my room just really confused. I think I kind of guessed at that point, because if he were in hospital or something, we would be going there straight away. But yeah, and then because he died with one of his best friends, and there was kind of just it's a bit of a blur after that, because so much happened, I can hardly remember it. I didn't really know for ages. No one said it to me. I had to, then my dad came round with his wife, and then someone called and asked to speak to Stephen, and then his wife picked up the phone and said, sorry, he's died.
He was involved in a major car crash at Beeper, which is in Ryde. Funnily enough, in about 3 weeks' time, 10th of December will be the anniversary, which will be 5 years. It was quite a horrific crash. The 2 boys either side of him died, and he was the only one to survive. It was the worst telephone call I've ever had in my entire life, and that's what happened. He fractured his, he had a punctured spleen, he had a punctured lung, he had a fractured skull, he also had a broken hand, his neck bones were broken, and for 3 days he didn't know that his 2 best friends either side had died. At the car accident, our best friend was 2 cars behind, so I got a phone call literally 4 minutes after it happened. So he was at the scene, and he was at the scene, and my husband was at the fire station on, doing his fireman Sam job, and he told me. We didn't hear anything, so I went and got my husband. We raced straight the way up to Beeper, so we were at Beeper within 10 minutes, and they wouldn't let Andy cross the line. They said they were going to arrest him because obviously there were 2 boys dead, but we didn't know this at the time. And then my best friend, who saved my son's life, because if he had walked he would have died of internal bleeding, he was there. And my husband went on to a car accident, and I had to stay by the line with my daughter. My daughter was there as well. I passed out actually. I completely fainted because I thought it was my son, because he was the only one to survive in the middle, and he never sat in the middle of the car ever. So it's affected our whole lives completely. I think it's affected the way that we act in the car, seat belts, and just really silly little things. And he never sits in the back in the middle of a car anymore because of just the way it is, I think. But yeah, definitely. Whatever happened on that day, we'll never ever know. We'll never ever know. But we have our suspicions. There was a car behind, and the boy driving was obviously going too fast. I can't blame anybody in my life. I can't blame anybody, but just don't go with all your friends off on a jolly.
We have now concluded from our investigations that there are multiple reasons for collisions, not just one. We found out that almost 95% of island collisions involving young people are down to human error. We have discovered that giving learned drivers more time to learn will help give them the experience on the road that they need. People are people, and people make mistakes, but unfortunately, some mistakes cost lives.
You've got a machine in front of you which is like a gun, and if you pull the wrong trigger at the wrong time, you're going to shoot somebody.